India's second nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine SSBN or Ship Submersible Ballistic Nuclear INS Arighat is scheduled to be commissioned on Thursday in South India's Visakhapatnam. According to defense sources, preparations for the commissioning ceremony are in their final stages. The 6,000-ton INS Arighat is set to embark on a long-range patrol of the Indo-Pacific. INS Arighat, armed with 750-kilometer range nuclear ballistic missiles K-15. India will now have two SSBNs, INS Arihant S2 and INS Arighat. INS Arighat, crucial part of country's nuclear triad and second strike capability. The Indian Navy has already approached the Prime Minister Narendra Modi government for approval of two nuclear-powered conventionally armed submarines. These submarines can remain underwater for months and their range limitation is only due to logistics, supplies and crew changes. INS Arighat is an upgraded version of INS Arihant, India's first SSBN. The development marks a significant advancement in India's naval capabilities, particularly concerning its strategic nuclear deterrence. Since we now know few things about INS Arighat and some of its features, to discuss it in detail, we have DG, National Maritime Foundation, Vice Admiral Pradeep Chauhan joining us from Delhi. A very warm welcome to the broadcast, sir. A very good afternoon to you. INS Arighat certainly would be another jewel in India's already decorated defense arsenal. That we have to agree. And India's second nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine. It's an upgrade version of INS Arihant. That also we know. For our viewers, could you explain in layman language how is it different and how will it benefit India's stealth capabilities under the sea?
Well, first of all, the SSBN itself is a NATO acronym for subsurface ballistic nuclear, which means that it's a subsurface vehicle. It is powered by nuclear propulsion and it carries ballistic missiles. Now, what kind of warhead on a ballistic missile is to be carried is, of course, a matter of choice. But more traditionally, SSBNs carry nuclear-tipped weaponry by way of missiles. Now, there are a range of missiles, and the Indian missile family for the SSBN is varying between the K-15, which is the missile that you've already mentioned, which was being carried on the Arihant, and the K-4, which is a missile which will be shortly deployed, which has a much longer range than that of the K-15. The prefix K, of course, is from the in order to give honor to the missile man of India, the former Honorable President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Arihant differs from Arighat, or Arighat is a variant of Arihant in that it is larger, it is more capable, it can carry a larger number of larger missiles. It has a longer endurance, and between the Arihant and the Arighat, India will be moving towards full-fledged nuclear capability triad. So a triad means that because nuclear power missilery can be launched from the air or from the land or from the sea, having all three of these vectors generates a triad. So Arihant is the pioneer, Arighat is the next step, and hopefully in the future we will have some other follow-ons of this particular class of SSBN. The fact is that with Arighat in place now, we will be able to have a much larger coverage because we can deploy these submarines on either seaboard of India and then place under range or under threat larger parts of the countries that are occupied by adversarial or potentially adversarial political groupings. Of greater consequence, of course, is the fact that no sane country actually tries to address the nuclear capability of a country that has SSBNs, because while you can actually perhaps take out the land vector and with greater difficulty the air vector, particularly where the air vector is still on the land.
Yeah.
But to know where exactly an SSBN is in the depths of the vast ocean expanse is almost an impossibility at the moment. And therefore, the triad is given its most reliable and most resilient and most enduring vector through the underwater vector that is represented in this case by Arighat and earlier by Arihant.
Okay. Sir, I need your reaction on this, on what you were saying just now. India already has land-based nuclear missiles, such as Agni series and air-launched nuclear capability. The SSBN, like you were mentioning, is likely to become now the most potent weapon in the nuclear triad. How do you analyze this?
Well, first of all, there's no question of likely to become. This is an emphatic statement of fact that where the three vulnerabilities of the three vectors are concerned, land-based nuclear capability is the most vulnerable because it operates from either fixed silos or from road mobile or rail mobile silos, both of which are capable of being addressed by an adversary. The air vector, as I said, is more difficult, but because the air vector has to start from the land, that part makes it less invulnerable or more vulnerable. On the other hand, the SSBN deploys for months and months at sea in areas that are completely unknown and completely unknowable. And therefore, the first idea that there is a launch is when the launch actually occurs. Consequently, SSBNs provide a nation with retaliatory or second strike capability. That means even if the nation was to have suffered the horrific damage which is going to be imposed by a nuclear strike, and that strike were to be able to debilitate or in any case deteriorate the amount of second strike capability, this will apply to both the other vectors in varying degree, but not apply to the sea-going vector at all.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in on the broadcast. Pleasure to have you on air.